You suspect you're out of sync. You think that you're out of your mind.
Everything you know is wrong.
When you log on to Facebook, you're used to seeing ads tailored specifically to your interests. Well, it turns out that Facebook can and has manipulated individual posts that appear on your newsfeed to test your emotional reactions to them. That's right, the world's largest social network is perfectly willing to turn its billions of users into lab rats. So if you think that Facebook is all fun and games, then everything you know is wrong. Joining me now is Eric Schiffer, business and technology analyst and chairman and CEO of Patriarch Equity and DigitalMarketing.com. Eric, welcome.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here with you, Tom.
Thanks for joining us. Facebook routinely alters what users see on their news feeds. What was different about what they did in this study?
Well, this one was done without any disclosure, and it was done to affect people's emotions. So, you know, if you're sitting at home and you were on Facebook and you suddenly started not feeling as positive as you normally would, or not feeling as good, there was a reason for it. In fact, about 600,000 people were affected by this. And what they did basically is they began to show amongst your friends' feed negative things. And they were watching to see whether or not those negative things that you would be seeing would cause you to begin to feel a certain way and to want to repost in a negative way. Conversely, they showed positive things and did the same thing. And what they found was they could influence people that were watching. And, you know, this isn't the first time they've done this, by the way, and they were doing other experiments, at least publicly, that were revealed in 2010, in which they were actually influencing elections, digital gerrymandering, if you will. So, you know, the FTC is actually looking into what happened here. This isn't the first time, though, that media, as we know, are influencing emotions. You know, I mean, typically, even you, if you turn on Fox News, I bet it would influence your emotions.
Well, I would, the first thought that went through my head was, how is this different from all the cheerleading for the Iraq War that we saw on every television network in late 2002 and early 2003? You know, or for that matter, back in the 90s, for the first Iraq War, you know, where the daughter of the Kuwaiti ambassador came on television and before Congress lied about her identity and talked about throwing babies out of you know, preemie things in the hospital, something that actually never happened, that convinced us all we needed to go to war.
Right. Well, I think good point. This is even more subtle. It's even more covert, where there's not even any necessary clues. I mean, you'd have to be almost a forensic psychologist. You'd have to have your background to begin to be able to determine what's really being done here. And so for the average person, whether they're in Iowa or Idaho or New York City, they just don't, they have no clue. And some would say the same as, you know, was the case with the Iraqi situation, but this is even less so. And so because of that, people are very upset. They're disturbed, especially in light of the wider environment with the Snowden revelations and what's happening with the NSA. People have said enough is enough, and especially with a medium that they've learned to trust and have into their homes, that they've invited their families and their loved ones to participate in. It's too much. And Facebook has gone as far as having the president appear and attempt to, you know, make what seems to be an apology, even though it wasn't a direct apology for how they treated people. They were more apologetic about the specific study in and of itself. They're protected, if you will, because of the terms of service, but right. Most people don't read these terms of service, so it's really unfair.
You know, in the context of media, just to use like NBC as an example, back when they were majority owned by General Electric, there was never any discussion on NBC about international trade, because GE makes more of their money outside the United States than they do inside the United States, and bad trade policies really benefited them. Now that they're owned by Comcast, there's no discussion about net neutrality, because Comcast is, you know, going to make a fortune if net neutrality is completely trashed. Has Facebook been successful in pulling off something similar to this? Are they manipulating people's news feeds and posts, blocking posts, or diminishing the importance of posts that might be critical of Facebook on Facebook? for this study?
Well, it's a really good question. There's no overt studies that have led to that, but there's a lot of anecdotal data that suggests that they're very protective of their brand online. And clearly, you know, Facebook, through its largest shareholder, you know, is a proponent of amnesty and is very active in D.C. on the lobbying side with many different issues, including things that are beneficial to Silicon Valley. So, you know, this is not the internet. This is one thing, as you and I know, I mean, and it's important for the public to know, the Facebook is not the internet. Facebook is a for-profit organization that benefits and does things that will benefit itself. And that's why I think the FTC is looking into this issue, and others that, you know, can protect the average people from it going too far. You know, and so I think it really wasn't right without some greater disclosure to do these kind of things.
Right. Okay, that's it's absolutely an extraordinary story, and I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, for somebody to come out and say, okay, we created, you know, 5,000 user identities and trash talked Facebook, and none of them appeared on anybody, you know, or something, or maybe not, or maybe they did. You know. Anyhow, Eric Schiffer, thanks so much for being with us.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me, Tom.
Thank you.